Okay, so today's webinar is going to be hosted by Schimelpfenig. He's quite a familiar name in the SketchUp world, so hopefully he's a name that's familiar to people. Eric's the founder of SketchThis.net, who offer training, modeling, and consultation using SketchUp. SketchThis.net is well worth checking out for the SketchUp tips and reviews of software and technology on there. He's also an active columnist in Kitchen and Bath Design News and often hired to teach SketchUp, and you can often meet him and see him at the SketchUp booth at a lot of the shows. So in this webinar, Eric's going to use a new plugin. It's called the Sketch This Kitchen Design plugin to show all of the ways you can build a kitchen. And then following on from this, showing how Shaderlight works with materials and using some of the components in the 3D warehouse. So that's enough from me. So I'm now going to pass you over to Eric, who is going to show you the plugin. Again, any questions that you have throughout the webinar, please use the question box and send the questions over to Eric, and he'll answer as many as he can, I'm sure. But as always, they get recorded, so we can get to people afterwards. So I'm passing over to Eric now. So thanks everyone. I hope you all enjoy, and I'll speak to you at the end.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction, and like Martin said, I'm going to give you a demo of how I build kitchens from scratch, and this is going to be an overview. It would take me better part of a day to actually teach you guys SketchUp, from scratch. So I'm just going to give you an overview of my workflow. And if you have any questions, type them in. However you want to get the questions to me, I'm happy to stop what I'm doing and explain what I'm doing if you have anything further. As Martin said, not only am I a SketchUp user, but I'm a big fan of Shaderlight too. It's been a great renderer for me. And in the beginning, I'll just show you how to build up a regular SketchUp model, and then we will get into using some Shaderlight and the kitchen design plugin that I have, which I think would be really helpful. So we're going to start here with almost the standard SketchUp screen. One of the first things I like to show people when they first start SketchUp, when I'm training them, is to turn on this toolbar here, and this is called the large tool set. This is all of the standard tools that typically appear on the top bar here, plus a few extras. And if you don't have this one on SketchUp already, it's like this. You go to View, Tool Palettes, and check off Large Tool Set, and it will appear. If you have a Windows PC, it'll say View and Toolbars, and you can check off Large Tool Set. And I usually like to put that over there. For the top icons, if you don't like them being repetitive on a Mac, you can just right-click and hit Customize Toolbar, and that will allow you to sort of drag and drop the different tools and change them out. And on PC, you can just drag that whole toolbar away and just clear it out because you'll have to it's a large tool set. The other toolbars I have here, this is the Sketch This plugin, which we'll talk about later, so I'll put that down there. And this is the Shaderlight toolbar, which we'll talk about later as well. So here I have a blank SketchUp model. And when I design kitchens, for those of you that haven't used SketchUp at all, and perhaps have used 2020 or AutoCAD or Chief Architect or any other program, SketchUp is backwards, really, in terms of the workflow than any of these other programs. And what I mean by that is you design things in 3D as they exist in real life first in SketchUp, and then you go later and you do your floor plans and your sections and your elevations and things like that. That sounds foreign if you haven't seen it before. I think it's the best way because most customers or people that are getting their kitchens designed don't understand blueprints and floor plans. They think in 3D. And because SketchUp is such a brilliant 3D modeler, it makes, to me, much more sense to draw it in 3D first. So we're going to do that right now. One of the first things I do is when I come back with my field measurements is I start getting my walls laid out on the ground, and then I pull them up into 3D. So for the sake of a real simple demo here, we're just going to do a typical U-shaped kitchen. And what I do first is just map out the walls on the floor. So I'll take the pencil tool, and I'll click here and release. So click and release is really important because it allows you to start a line and then kind of move it around and get it lined up. And in this case, I'm going to want to draw it parallel to the green axis. So if we look, we see a green axis here, and we see a red axis here. Those are the two axes that are on the ground. The blue axis, which you see over to the left here, is the up and down. And the way I always remember that is blue points towards the sky. So as long as you remember blue, the only two left are on the ground, which is the red and green one. So I'm going to draw this line over here on the green. I'm just going to pull it this way. And rather than clicking again, because you can see as I move it, the length of the line changes in the bottom right-hand corner, I want to draw a 12-foot line. And rather than clicking again, I can actually just type in 12 feet. So I'll just type in 12 feet and hit enter, and SketchUp will automatically put in a 12-foot line. The wall across is going to be 24 feet. And I apologize, everyone. I'm from the U.S. I don't do metrics. So I only do metrics every now and then. So you'll have to bear with me on the imperial measurements. So to make the line across the back, I'll make sure it's along the red axis. And I'm going to type in 24 feet and hit enter. And I'm going to back up here. And for the last line, since we're making a U shape, it's going to be another 12-foot line. Now, there are a couple ways that I could put this 12-foot line in here. I could just draw it, again, along the green axis and type in 12 feet and hit enter, and that would work just fine. SketchUp has some tools built in that will help you draw things kind of palm square and level. So what I could do is I could go touch the end of this line because we know it's 12 feet as well. And if I pull away, you see I get this dotted red line. And when the line that I'm drawing gets parallel to the green and it's also lined up with the end of the first 12-foot line that I drew, SketchUp kind of magnetizes to that theoretical intersection, so to speak. And it'll help you draw it there. So since it's kind of magnetized, I can just click, and I automatically have a 12-foot line there. Hit spacebar to cancel it. So now I have a 12 by 24 by 12 U-shaped wall. I need to make this wall 3D because that's how SketchUp is. So I'm going to offset these lines back 4 inches. So what I'm going to do is just click and drag and draw a box around these lines and click the offset tool, which is this guy here. And the offset tool only works with 2 or more lines that are attached together. In this case, we have 3, so we're okay. And again, with this, I'm going to click and release and start moving it out in that direction. So I'm going to have a 4-inch thick wall in this case. So I'm going to type in 4 inches and hit enter. And you see now I have the lines offset from the original ones 4 inches. Now, the last thing I want to do before we go into 3D is I need to make a closed face. So anytime in SketchUp where you have a loop of 3 or more lines like this, it will make a face. And faces are things that you can turn into 3D. So if we want to make this wall 3D, and to do that, I need to close it off. So I can go over here, and I'll take my pencil tool and just connect these 2 lines here. And then go over to the other side here and take my pencil tool and close those off. And you'll see a face was created now because this group of lines now is a closed loop. So now here comes the fun part. We're going to put this into 3D, and this is the famous SketchUp push-pull tool. And the push-pull tool lets you take any face like this and push or pull it up into 3D. Turn this way a little bit. What you're going to want to do with this tool, in this case, is to get it going in the direction that you want, which is in our case up. And once it's in that direction, you can type in the height that you want the wall. In this case, I'm going to do 96 inches. So I'm going to type in 96. I'm going to pause for 1 second and just talk about the inputting measurements and answer a couple questions here. So I've been doing putting in imperial measurements the entire time here, and that's what my default is set at. The way SketchUp works when you put in any dimension is that you can give it a dimension in any format that you want. So for example, if I'm drawing a line and I wanted a, like you saw, a 12-foot line, I was able to type in 12 feet and hit enter. I could type in a 3M line, which would be a 3-meter line, which might be something you guys are a little more familiar with. Since SketchUp draws everything in full scale, it doesn't matter what dimension format you put in, as long as you're explicit about what you put in. If you want to set a default measurement, so every dimension I've been putting in, like when I type in 12 feet, I type in 12 and put the little apostrophe for feet and the little quotation for inches and the M for meters. If you want to just be able to type in a number and have it know that those are inches or feet or miles or something like that, you can set the default by going to Window and going to Model Info and going to Units, and you can change it here. You can see that I'm in architectural, which is feet inches, and my precision is 1/16 of an inch, which is fine for what I do. You can change this at any time because SketchUp draws in full scale. All right, so let's take a look at some of the questions here. We have, what is the advantage over the dynamic component like Sketch Data? I'm going to get to that later. You will see the plugin a little bit towards the end here. Cabinet Sense. Yes, I've used Cabinet Sense before, and my plugin is different than Cabinet Sense. And again, we'll kind of talk about that more towards the end. And the last question is, can you use the Cutlass plugin to produce a cutting list from your components? Yes and no, and I'll touch on that towards the end. So, all right. So right now we have the three walls set up here, and we need to put some more detail on these walls before we start filling them with cabinets and things. And we're going to put a window or two in here and a door. And the way I like to do that is to use the tape measure tool. So let's talk about how the tape measure tool works. It's pretty simple. It's this button right here. It looks like a tape measure. And in its simplest form, you can click from point to point, and you can take a measurement. So if I clicked here from this bottom left corner into the corner of the wall, and you can see it confirms that my wall is 12 feet. I use this tool a lot as I'm going along, just to make sure I haven't put in a mistyped a number or dimension or something as I go along. So this is a great tool to use as you go along, and it works just like a tape measure. So not only can I measure along a line, but you can measure from any point to any point. So if I wanted to get the diagonal distance across this wall, the tape measure tool will actually do that. So think of literally like a tape measure in real life. So, all right, let's say on this wall I wanted to map out a window in the wall, and which I'm eventually going to punch a hole through the wall, and then we're going to actually install a window into it. To do that, I'm going to put a rectangle on the wall like that, and I'll use the push-pull tool to punch the hole in. Now there's a problem here in that when I'm drawing with the rectangle tool, I have no way to actually locate the rectangle exactly where I want it. And since I have real field measurements, I want to be able to use those so that my window is in the right spot. So the question is, how do you do that? And the answer is we can actually use the tape measure tool. So let's say we have some dimensions on this window, and let's say we know that the center line is 11 feet. So what you can do is you can take the tape measure tool. If you measure along a line and you start pulling away, you're going to see a dotted line form, and it will be parallel to that wall on the left. So all I did, just let me show you this again here, I simply click on the tape measure tool and click on this line, and I pull away like that. And you can click again to set the line down, or like a lot of other things in SketchUp, you can give it a dimension. So in this case, I know the center line of my window is 11 feet. So I can hit 11 feet and hit enter, and it will drop a line there. Now, we have let's say we have a 36-inch window, a 36-inch wide window. Half of 36 is 18, so I can do the same trick here. I can click the tape measure tool and pull away, and I can type in 18 inches, and type in 18 inches here. And let's say I know the window is 42 inches off the ground, so I can type in 42 and hit enter. And the same thing here. Let's say the window is, I don't know, 40 inches tall, and I'll type in 40. So what you can see is happened here is I've used the tape measure tool's ability to put down these temporary lines to map out exactly where this window is going to be. So now I can take the rectangle tool and use this as a guide. So instead of just putting the window wherever, I can click from here, and it will snap right here, and I have this window perfectly located according to my field dimensions. So now I can take my push-pull tool, and as we talked about earlier, the push-pull tool will work on any face, and since I've drawn a rectangle here, we've got a new face. And I can pull this window out, or I can push it through. And if I push it through, SketchUp kind of knows that I'm trying to punch a hole, and we'll do that. So now you can see I have a hole here. Now, for the moment, we are done with these temporary lines, and as you model and use these things, I tend to get a lot of them all over my model, and you want to get rid of them because they can really clutter up things. There are a couple ways that you can get rid of them. You can use the eraser tool and simply erase each line one by one, which is a totally acceptable way to do it, but if you have a lot of lines, it can be a little tedious. The way that I like to do it is I like to go up to Edit, and I like to go to Delete Guides. And it will delete all the guides in your model in one click, and then you can move on to the next thing. So I'll do another window over here. I'll do this one a little bit faster. So we'll take the tape measure tool, and we'll say that the center line of this window is 6 feet. The width is 40, so we'll say 20 inches and 20 inches. Come up from here, 42, and come up here, 40. And we can use our rectangle tool again and punch this hole in the wall just like that. And then I'll go to Edit and Delete Guides, and we've got a perfectly mapped out window in this wall. All right, for those of you that are coming, either haven't used SketchUp or coming from other programs, I'm going to show you a technique that I like to, well, that is called grouping of objects, and it helps organize your models a lot better. So for right now, for the moment, I'm done editing this wall, and I'm going to put it in a group. And the way I do that is I can select the whole wall like this, right-click it, and put it in a group. And that probably doesn't mean anything to you right now, and I'm going to show you why this is really important. So I'm going to undo that. And so let's say you have this wall, and you want to start adding furniture, lights, other obstacles, things like that. You can do that. And right now this wall is what I call raw geometry. And what that means is the wall is unprotected. So I can select each face, each line, and every part of this wall individually. So let's say you started drawing say there's a little built-in sitting bench here. So you start drawing it in like that, add some detail and things. So everything's going great. We've got our little bench here we're drawing, and that's fine. So let's say later on you decide that you want to move the bench somewhere. Well, you may have already figured out that you can draw a box around things to select them. And in this case, I'm able to select this bench very easily by drawing a box around it. If I take my Move tool and I go to move it, that happens. You can see that the bench has stuck to the wall and basically destroyed our wall. This is really bad, and you don't want to do this. Now, the first SketchUp model I ever did after I came from AutoCAD, I was doing a condo project, and I did an entire condo, detailed interior and exterior, and I didn't group anything. And when I went to move stuff, like the furniture I'd drawn, all the kitchen parts, the bathroom, everything like that, I completely destroyed my model because of this. So I'm going to show you how to avoid this. So let's go over here real quick, and I'll do my cube example. So what I'm going to do here is I have 2 cubes, okay? And right now, since these are raw geometry, if they touch each other and then you move one away, they stick together, just like what happened in our wall. If I select either by triple-clicking or drawing a box around one of these cubes, I can right-click it and I can put it in what's called a group. So you can say Make Group, just like that. And once I do that, you notice that the cube on the left, the one that I just put in a group, works a little differently now. If I click it once, the entire thing highlights. If I click the one on the right, which is not in a group, it's still what I call raw geometry. Because the one on the left is in a group, you can basically think of it having a protective force field around it so that other geometry can't affect it. So let's go ahead and I'll put this cube back on top of our one in the force field. And when I move it away now, it doesn't stick because the cube on the left is in a group or that protective force field. So getting that into a real-world example, here's our wall here that's raw geometry, and I'm going to triple-click it just to select the whole wall. 1, 2, 3, triple-click. I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to put it in a group. So what this does is this wall is now protected. And if I want to go ahead and draw that bench again, I can draw on top of the group. I'm doing the same thing I did before. And bench, back in, and oops. And so there we go, just like I did before. And now I can select this whole bench, and I can do things to it, like move it away, and it doesn't stick to that wall because it's in a group. As you draw things, like your wall, your bench, tables, chairs, anything else you put in your model, you definitely want to group them. So if I right-click this and say Make Group, it's going to put this bench in a group, and I can move it around. And we'll talk about this later, but the other advantage of having things in a group is it makes it very easy to move things around. So if you want to rotate things and set them on different walls and things like that, it makes it really easy. So okay, so now we have a basic wall mocked up, and we want to start filling this with stuff. And I think one of the first things we should put in here are some windows. And if you're not familiar, SketchUp has the 3D Warehouse, which is an online repository of 3D models that are pre-made. And you can find things like doors and windows and cups and plates and people and all kinds of things to accessorize your models. Because my theory is that if you're, whatever it is that you're designing, whether it's kitchens or something else, the thing that you're selling, or the thing that's most important, is probably the thing that you want to draw. Very detailed. In our case, that's the cabinets. But things like windows and other accessories, I can show you guys how to draw a really nice mullion window, but it would take me a couple hours, and it would take you a couple hours to draw it every time, and that seems like a waste of time. So there's a couple ways you can browse the 3D Warehouse for stuff. I like to do it by going to Window and Components. And what that will do is bring up this Components window here. So over here. And right when you get into it, you can see that you can search in the 3D Warehouse. So you can type in a window, and it will search and show you every 3D model that's in here called Windows. Now we have 36,156 pages of 12 windows each. So that's a lot to choose from. The great thing about the 3D Warehouse is there's a lot of stuff in it. The bad thing about the 3D Warehouse is that there's a lot of stuff in it. And what I mean by that is sometimes there are some great things, and sometimes there are some not so great things. And I'm going to show you how to get to the great things and avoid the bad things. So first of all, let's take a look at one of the first windows that comes up here, and it's this Windows by Matt. So to get this into my model, I just click the icon, and it will download it, and it will bring it right into SketchUp. So what this is, instead of this being a model of one window, it's a whole bunch of windows. And we could certainly use these. I mean, I could explode the windows out of here, get one of the individual windows, select it, bring it over, line it up, stick it in there, and then, let's say I wanted it on this left wall here, I'd have to take one of these windows and, turn it, move it. And not that that's a big deal, but it's a whole bunch of extra clicking. And I'm going to show you actually an easier way to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete these guys out of here. So this is what I like to do for architectural components, is instead of just Googling for a model, SketchUp has a bunch of categories of models that the SketchUp guys themselves have made, organized them in here for you to make them easier to get to it. So if you go to architecture, go over, instead of the search window, just to the left, there's this little pull-down arrow. And if you click that, you have all these options here, and these come with every version of SketchUp, and you can click on architecture. And when you click on architecture, this is going to bring you to SketchUp's little corner of the 3D Warehouse that they've organized. And you can search in here, and we're going to find Windows. And you'll see when this list of windows comes up here, it's all windows, and they all say by SketchUp. So that's a clue right there that they're going to be really good ones. So let's find something that's going to work out okay in this back wall here. And I'm going to try this double hung window here. Now, you see that there's sizes on these windows. This is a 35 by 46 inch, and if you remember, the opening is not 35 by 46 inch, but it's close to that. And I'm going to show you how we're going to make this window fit. So there's two things you can click here. Again, if I click on this icon, it will bring the model right in. If I click on the blue kind of description, it'll actually pop the window up in a larger window so you can see it. And you can even see a 3D view if you want to spin something around before you put it into your model. So it's a good way to get a little bit of extra information on the model, or at the very least just a larger picture of it so you can see what it looks like. But for right now, I know that's the window I want. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to bring it in. And the first thing you'll notice when I bring this window in is that it's attached to the mouse pointer. Oops, and one more time here. And it automatically lines itself up to the different walls that it's stuck on. And that's a feature you can put into components, and not too many people who upload to 3D Warehouse know that. But the SketchUp guys too, and that's one of the reasons why I really love their components, is because they work well like this. So I'm going to take this window, and I'm going to set it here. And I know it's not the right size, but that's okay. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to grab the same window, and I'm just going to stick it in the bottom left corner. And SketchUp, you know, again, kind of magnetizes to that bottom left-hand corner, and we'll put it in here. So to get this window the correct size, I'm going to use what's called the scale tool. So if I click on this window to select it, and I use the scale tool, which is this button over here, this window will come up with a bunch of grips that I can use to resize it. And I'll show you how the scale tool works. It basically stretches and skews an object. So you can see why, and you'll see why in a moment here, that I went for a window that was pretty close to the size. You know, because if I had to scale it really tall, there's a point of, you know, diminishing returns here, and you can see that this window gets very, very skewed, and it looks pretty bad. But in the case here, where it's only a couple inches taller than the opening needs to be, if I take the scale tool and I click it and I make it a little bit smaller, it looks just fine. And same thing with the width. I can make it the correct width. And you know, sure, I mean, if you went in there with the tape measure tool, you could probably tell these top pieces are a little bit wider than the ones on the left. But we're not selling this window. It's just there for the picture. And instead of taking 2 hours to model, it took us 2 seconds to model. So I think that's a good trade-off. So we go here, and we do the same thing. Just take a scale tool and go like that, and go like that. So we've got another scale window here. So we just, in a few moments, we've gotten things, you know, looking a lot more like a room. So now, there are lots of other components in here, and I mean, I could spend, you know, half a day going through and showing you all some of the great components, but I'm not going to do that because we've got some cooler stuff to look at. Architecture, if you're doing any kind of interiors or buildings, is definitely the place to look at in terms of these categories. There's some really great stuff in here. There's furniture, all kinds of things that are pre-made. And what you can do as well, if you have a Google account, you can bookmark things that you use all the time. So if you find a great window that you like, or a you know, some other kind of component, you can bookmark them all. And I don't know if I'm signed in here. I'm not, but what I recommend you do if you want to search for stuff and bookmark it is to not do that in SketchUp. You can actually just go on the internet, and you can just type in 3D Warehouse. And you can log into 3D Warehouse and start searching for models. And as you find them, you can bookmark them. And then when you go into SketchUp, you can sign in down here with your Google account. And all of those models that you save from the web browser will automatically be in your sort of bookmarks in SketchUp. It's really easy to do, and I definitely recommend you do it because it will make going through the 3D Warehouse a whole lot easier. So that's the 3D Warehouse. In a nutshell. I'm going to show you a little bit my kitchen design plugin, because this is the point where we're going to start putting some cabinets in here. So what this plugin is a collection of cabinets that we've created that are dynamic components. And let me show you what a dynamic component is before we get any further. This table and these windows that I brought in are dumb components. So they are, you know, you can see they're sort of in a group, but they don't know what they are. So in the case of the window, when I scaled it, you can see, you know, it got all stretched and skewed, and the same thing with this table. If I made this table wider, it doesn't sort of recalculate and know that it's a table. Let's find a dynamic component, and I'll show you exactly what these things are. So we'll take the picket fence here, and we'll put this thing in. So you'd think, based on what I just showed you, if I took this picket fence and I used the scale tool and I made it wider, it's just going to get all stretched and skewed like that. that is in fact not the case. So if I take this component and I stretch it, it'll take a moment to recalculate, but you'll see that it added more pickets and everything maintains the correct width. That is because this is a smart component. And you can tell on the 3D warehouse that it's a smart component because they got this little green badge that's next to it, these two dots in the triangle. So not only does this fence know how to recalculate its size when you use the scale tool, there are also other options that are built in, and you can get to those by right-clicking on the component, going to Dynamic Components, and hitting Options. And that will bring up this window. So in this case, we've got a couple things. Well, one thing right here we can do. We can change the spacing of the pickets. So right now they're set at 5 inches, and let's go ahead and make that 10 inches. And I'll press Enter, and you'll see that it recalculates and it respaces the pickets. So this is a pretty simple dynamic component, but it shows you how they work. There are also other types of components, appliances and things like that, which I'll show you. So what I've done over the past number of years is I've taught people SketchUp, and when you teach kitchen design or SketchUp, you get to this point where you need to put the cabinets in, and the only way to do really good, really accurate cabinets is to draw them from scratch. And while SketchUp is a really, really fast 3D modeler, drawing each cabinet from scratch can be a real pain in the neck. I mean, I can draw a pretty good cabinet, pretty detailed cabinet from scratch, and I can do it in about 15 minutes. And then to resize it, you have to sort of take apart the 3D model and resize it, and that can take about 5 or 10 minutes. So you can imagine with the average kitchen being that you're talking about a lot of drawing time versus other software that you can just sort of drag and drop pre-made cabinets in. Now, if you go into architecture, you can see that there are actually cabinets here, and they're very basic ones, and if you're just doing really basic space planning, they'll work okay, but if you really want to design a good detailed kitchen, I think my plugins will work better. So the way the plugin works is you download it, and it will bring up this little toolbar here. And you get 3 buttons. You get the gear button, which allows you to log in with your account. You get the door button, which allows you to swap doors out, which we'll talk about later, and you get the cabinet button, which allows you to get cabinets. So I'm going to close the components window here, and I'm going to hit the cabinet button. And what this is doing, it's basically bringing you to our own version of the 3D warehouse that is made just for kitchen designers. So one of the first things I'm going to want in here is to get some cabinets. So we'll go into bases, and let's start with the corner. And that's usually where I like to start with. So we'll get a corner base cabinet, and I'm going to get, let's see, you know what? I'm going to need to log in here. One moment. We'll get a little lesson in how to log in. And if you log in, you can use you can create an account, or you can actually use Facebook and Twitter and all the different social services too, so you don't have to remember another password. So there we go. I'm all logged in, and we'll just close this window out here and go back in and get us some cabinets. Bear with me one moment here. I just need to get this thing logged in. Oops. Come on. There we go. Okay. Good thing I know who runs the plugin. I can go change my email address later because it's not ASDF. All right. So we'll go get some corner bases. And I tell you what, since we're not logged in here fully, let's get some standard bases. Bases, standard bases. Okay, so we'll start with a sink base. We'll put that in underneath the window. So this works a lot like the 3D warehouse. You can go in and browse the cabinets that you want. And if you just want to get the cabinet and put it right into your model, you can just hit Insert into Model. If you want to find out more how this cabinet is configurable, you can click the links that are in each description, and that will actually take you to a page with little miniature videos that show you how to configure each option. but I'm going to walk you through that, so we don't need to watch the videos right now. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to get the sink base, and I'm going to insert it into my model. And it works just like the 3D warehouse. So you get this cabinet, and it comes in, and you can set it down just like any other 3D warehouse component. And once you click it, it will drop a copy of it, and you can continue dropping more copies. If you don't want to do that, you can just hit the space bar, and it will leave just the one copy behind you did. So these cabinets, or any of the components that come in here, are like they are a dynamic component. So you can take them and you can use the scale tool in a lot of them. And you can see as I stretch this thing, it gets a little skewed, but if I click again, it will actually recalculate and make the the door frames and everything the correct way. That's a pretty basic configuration you can do to it. For kitchen designers, there are a lot more options under the hood of these things. So if I right-click and I go to Dynamic Components and I go to Options, it will bring up a very large list of configurable options here. We'll make this thing 36 inches wide, and we'll hit Enter. And it'll make it 36 inches wide. I can change the overlay. You guys are probably pretty used to frameless doors, where most of you are from, so I can change this from a framed cabinet to a frameless cabinet with one click. Lots of other options here, and I'm not going to go through every one. The plugin, the majority of this is free. You can download it and play with all these features for yourself. But one thing that really sets this apart from the 3D warehouse is that our cloud service allows you to make some changes to these things that you wouldn't normally be able to do with a standard SketchUp model. And one of the main things is doors. So right now, every cabinet comes in with its basic door on it. But if you want a different door, you can click the door icon, and it will bring up the door browser, and you can pick a different door. So let's go down here, and let's find something here. We'll try this Thunderchild flat panel. Oh, that's the one we have on here. Let's change it to a slab door, which is probably something you guys are used to out there. So I'll click the slab door, and it'll ask me yes to replace all doors and selected cabinets, no to pick doors individually. So I'm going to say yes because I want to swap every door in that cabinet. And you see what happens here is those doors got swapped out. The really amazing thing that happens here is that, yes, that looked very simple, that the doors just sort of swapped to the other one, but what's happened here is the doors are actually stored in the cloud. And when you click to swap a door, the plugin will download the door from the cloud, put it in your model, take off all of the other doors, and then replace it with whatever door you selected. So what that means is, instead of only being limited to a couple different door styles for each component, we can have unlimited door styles. So it's a small catalog to start with, but we're building it up, and we're telling users too, if you have a particular door that you'd like to see in there, email it to us and we'll put it in for you. So that's one of the really unique things, and as this plugin develops, we're going to be able to swap other interior accessories and organizers and shelves and things like that. But that's the one of the most innovative and important features that it has is that we're able to swap out doors. Moving on, there's cabinets of every shape and size in here. We've got vanity cabinets, tall cabinets, pantry cabinets, and they're all pre-configured, by and for kitchen designers. So it should make designing a kitchen real easy. We've got things in here too, like the wall cabinets are properly made models so that they stick to a wall and they automatically realign themselves as you as you put them on different walls. And again, every component that's in here has all kinds of configurable options. So you can change the width and size, and just imagine like this wall cabinet here. To draw it once would take me 15, 20 minutes. To resize it might take me another 5 or 10. And I was able to do that with just a few clicks here. And then you can change overlays and things like that. So I think if you're a kitchen designer, this is a pretty incredible thing. But I want to show you guys a couple more things since we're doing sort of the crash course here, and talk a little bit about some Shaderlight stuff too. So within this plugin, not only are there cabinets, but there actually are some Shaderlight lights too. So you can make a photorealistic render of your kitchen. And if we go down here to accessories, and you'll see lots of categories here. If we go to lighting, you can actually find Shaderlight lights. And You'll see these are pre-configured lights that I've built, under cabinet lights, pendant light, torchlight light, things like that you can put in, that when you render your model, they're already preset, so you don't even have to go in and set up your own lights. And incidentally, too, there are lights in my plugin, and there are lights on the 3D Warehouse. So I will show you how those render in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about materials a little bit, too, because that's after you design a kitchen. One of the things that people always ask is, how do you put materials in? So I'm going to put a floor in this kitchen real quick here, like this. Make that a group. So let's put a tile floor in here, and to do that, you can hit the paint bucket tool, and that will bring up the materials window. Let's get this thing out. Go to webinar window. There we go. And that will allow you to browse through the standard SketchUp materials. And we'll talk about this a little more later, but what's nice about using all the materials that you're going to find in here is they're already pre-configured to work with Shaderlight, so when you do your render, the reflectivity and the cut maps and everything are going to work really well. So let's take this tile here, and to paint it, all you do is simply click on it and paint on the surface that you want, and it appears on the floor. So we've got a nice tile floor here. You can take this a little bit further. So if I want to change the size of the tile or the orientation, move around, SketchUp allows you to do that. So one of the most basic features that you can do is change the size of the texture. So let's go to Home and this little house here. And what that'll do, this is going to show you all the textures that are in a model. And you can see we've got this tile texture here. And on a Mac, if I double-click on this texture, it will bring me to the edit window where I can edit things about the texture. On a PC, all you have to do is select it, and there's an Edit tab near the top. So I'm going to double-click this, and you'll see that the materials window is kind of expanded a little bit, and we have some choices of things that we can do down here. First thing you'll notice is the size. So the width of this texture is 2 feet 8 inches by 2 feet 8 inches. And especially in the case of tile, people want to know, well, how can I put in, I want to make this a 12 by 12 tile or something like that. Since this texture, and you can see the little preview here, is made up of 4 tiles by 4 tiles. If you wanted this to be a 4-inch tile, you'd have to make this 16 inches by 16 inches, like that. And that will make it, 4 times 4 is 16, so that will make it a 4-inch by 4-inch tile. And you see, as I change the size here, the aspect ratio is locked. So if I make this 2 feet, it's going to make the other side 2 feet as well. If for some reason you wanted to make these tiles rectangle, you can actually break the link in between the two. And let's say I went ahead and I made the height 4 feet. It will now make them into rectangles. So that's one of the most basic things you can do to textures. You can also change kind of the hue and the tint and things like that. On the PC, you're going to have some toolbars near the top. They're not going to look quite like this, but they're going to work in the same way. So if I click on this color wheel here, I can sort of lighten and darken the texture. I can make green tile if I wanted. I don't know why I want to do that. Purple. Graham would probably like that tile. Things like that. So you can change the colors, and there's always, you can always reset back if you want to. Let me show you guys, since we're moving through kind of quick here, I'm going to show you some more advanced stuff you can do to textures. So let's go back and let's just get a different tile. Start with something fresh. And we'll try this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and paint a new tile on here. So what I just showed you were the basic edits. If you want to get a little more detailed, you can right-click and you can hit Texture and hit Position. And this allows you to actually move the texture around, which some people, again, in the case of tile, really like, because you can go down here and you can line up your texture perfectly. So you can actually use this for tile planning, which is really nice. You can see where a tile is going to start and end. But you can also do other things too. So you can, when you right-click and you hit Position, you normally get these pins right here. And these pins all do different things. So The red arrow moves and drags things around. This one skews things, which probably isn't very relevant for tile. This skews things the other way. But this one here, this green one, is really important. So you can take this, and it will allow you to make things smaller and bigger, and you can rotate too. So you can, if you wanted a tile on a 45-degree angle, you can do something like that. And when you're done, just right-click and hit Done. And you've got a tile on a 45-degree angle, which is something you couldn't do in the paint bucket window. We'll run out of time a little bit here, but you can take textures even further. You can actually edit them in Photoshop too, which is something I like to do. And you can bring in pictures from the web. Here, we'll do a fun thing real quick here. Let's say you wanted to make a photo out of texture. And actually, let's do this. I'm going to bring in a texture that I downloaded from the web. So I'm going to say Import, and I'm going to click on All Supported Image Types, and I'm going to say Use this texture. Those options are already set. And I'm going to take this tile here. Let's see what we have here. Let's find ceramic floor tiles. Let's try this one. Here we go. So this is an image that I downloaded off of Google Image Search. I just searched for tiles. And I'm going to click Import. And it'll bring that tile texture in, put it on the end of my mouse pointer, and I can click. And I just brought that tile texture in from the web automatically. So you're not limited to just textures that you find in SketchUp. You can make it up. All right, we got a couple minutes left here. Let's see what we have for some of the questions. How do you add hardware to a cabinet? Great question. There is hardware in the plugin. You can go through and browse it, and you put it in individually. It will eventually go on automatically. We haven't quite gotten it yet. We're working on adding a feature to that that will allow you to oops, put it in automatically. I don't know why those aren't coming up right now, but there will be hardware in there, and you can click and put them on. The question about adding a sink to a cabinet. You can do that. There's actually a tutorial on my website on how to do that. I don't have enough time to show you right now. The question, I had a question about how this compares to Cabinet Sense. This is more of a design and planning tool. Cabinet Sense is meant for more people that are building cabinets. So you're going to find, you're not going to find a cut list or a reporting tool on this plugin at the moment. The reporting tool is something that's on the very short roadmap. Right now, but this is just a design and planning tool. All right, so in the last couple minutes, probably should show you guys some Shaderlight stuff. And let me, I'll tell you what, let me go here and show you. Since I can't, Shaderlight's pretty fast, but I can't magically make you a rendering in 8 minutes here. I'll show you I'll show you the final product, and I'll give you a quick demo on how to get there. So here are a couple kitchens that I've done. These are all SketchUp models, and they were all rendered with just Shaderlight. There's no special effects done in Photoshop or anything after. These are all done from SketchUp models, and I'll give you this is the real crash course on how to do this. So if I was to render this kitchen. There are some preparation things, some things I would do to prepare. You need to make it look more like you need to make it physically work more like a real model. And you would certainly never have a kitchen that had no ceiling or no back wall. So I'm going to put a ceiling and a back wall on this, and I'm actually just going to go inside that ceiling and real quick make this a little bit easier to look around here. Get this thing lined up. Back up a little bit. There we go. So to do an interior rendering, you have to set some settings in Shaderlight. And this is what I love about Shaderlight. It's so easy to do this kind of thing. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set just a real low quality render so it renders real quick. And for the scene, we're doing an interior because we're inside the model. Say auto update. And lighting. So I put this one light in this room, and I'm going to say use artificial lights only. And background and use lighting environment. And before we begin, I'm going to put one more light in here just to kind of offset this first light that we have. So I'm going to turn around, look at the other side, and we'll pretend that we've got another light source that's back here. So SketchUp and we'll say area light, and I'm just going to put a big light on this back wall here, just so we get some ambient light in the room. Make that 50 candela. Okay, so we'll do a real quick render here, just so you guys can see how this thing works before we get out of here. This is not going to be the most impressive render in the world, but it'll give you an idea how this works. So when you're doing renderings in Shaderlight, I like to kind of check them as I go along, and this auto update thing, which you'll see in a minute here, works really, really well. So again, I did this low quality and did it really quick, but it kind of starts blurry and it fades into view, and you can see really quickly how your render is going to look like. So right now, the light that this lamp is throwing out and the ambient light I have in the rest of the room looks like it's going to work pretty well, and I only had to look at this thing for a couple seconds here to get an idea of that. As I add more objects in, you can see how they affect the render. So very simply, if I wanted to put a cabinet over here, I'll bring that into the scene, and we'll find some wood. We'll make it the correct color. That, and I'll go ahead and hit the render button again, which is the camera. We will bring up the Shaderlight render window. And you'll see, really quickly the scene updated, and I've got that cabinet in there already. So this is, and to be honest, I've used other renders before, and I found that this one, is really the easiest. And the big picture here is that, with the plugin that I have, and the SketchUp being as easy it is to use, the plugin that I have, and using Shaderlight, I think, personally, you've got a really, really easy workflow into very quickly building a 3D model, being able to show it to your customer, and also very quickly being able to render it so that you can sell that design really easily. I mean, again, we didn't have enough time here to build an entire kitchen, but I think we can get the idea of how quickly you can make something look realistic, which will really, really help you sell the idea that you have. I think at this point, let me just make sure I have no more questions here. The question is, can I create my own door and save it to use? Yes and no. What we're doing right now is if you have a door that you want to have in the model, you can either make it yourself and send it to us, or just send us a picture of the door, and we will build that door and put it in so that it's there for your use later. One of the things that we're going to add eventually is sort of a configurable part of the plugin where you can make your own components or have us make components for you and sort them in there. So the answer right now today is if you want your own door, we're happy to put it in there for you for free. So you can just send it along to us. You can find my contact info on the website. And we only have an hour here. We've got about 2 minutes left. I think it's probably time for me to turn it back over to Martin. If anyone has any questions on Shaderlight or anything else, definitely reach out to me and ask. I'm always happy to answer questions for free. You can find my contact info on my website, or if you're a Twitter person, I'm on there all the time. I'm at SketchThis, all one word, on Twitter. So you can talk to me there, and you can talk to Shaderlight on there too. So I want to thank Shaderlight and Martin for having me. I hope this has been helpful. Again, I'm sorry for kind of crash coursing through it, but I think that you guys probably got a good idea of how this works, and I'll send it back over to Martin. But thank you, everybody, for coming.
That's great. Thanks very much, Eric. I know that there was a bit of a sort of influx of questions that came in at the end there, and we will make sure we get back to you. So don't worry on those.
Oh yeah, I just scrolled down and saw a couple more. Yes, I'm sorry. Do you mind if I go through a couple of these, Mark?
No, please do. Please do.
Pricing. So right now, the pricing is for most of the components, and the Shaderlight ones and all the other ones. Those are free. You can download the plugin, and you don't even have to make an account. You can play with those for free. As far as Shaderlight goes, I'll let Martin speak to that. I think they're offering a little bit of a deal for the folks that have been at the webinar. So don't leave right at 5 o'clock. So give it one more minute. I have 2 more questions to answer, and I'll let Martin tell you all about that. Question from Stephen. Can handles and poles be put on all cabinets and swapped all at once? Today, no. In the very near future, yes. It will work just like the door swapping works. But in its first iteration, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. I wanted designers to have real good control over where the knobs and poles ended up. So I haven't released that yet, but it's on the very, very short list. And what about frame style in kitchens? Yes, there are frames. You can do half overlay, frame kitchens, full overlay. You can do inset, beaded inset, and 3/8 lipped inset, as well as frameless. I just showed frameless here because I figured we'd probably have kind of a big, European audience here. So yes, though every cabinet has a feature to swap from all 5 different frame styles. All right, I think that was all the questions. Take it away, Martin.
Okay, thanks very much. So, as Eric mentioned, that you can actually get all the information regarding this plugin from his website, sketchthis.net, and his contact details are on there, and the ability to contact Eric, and that's all on there. And again, as we mentioned, and during May, you can get a 25% discount from Shaderlight. And, as a thanks to Eric, we've got a code here, ERIC25. If you enter that at the checkout, you get 25% discount, and that's just up until the end of May. Now, our next webinar, we're going to be running through different Shaderlight techniques. So really sort of, rather than, specific questions that we've run through in the past, this is going to be something where just different things. So if there are any Shaderlight techniques that you may struggle with, or have suggestions for, please let us know. And if you contact us at support@artbps.com, and let us know what techniques you'd like to see in the next webinar, and we can go through that as well. Now, this video we've recorded this webinar. It's going to be available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Shaderlight. And, that's going to be on there as well. So, we look forward to seeing some of you in the next webinar as well. So, really hope that you can join us on that. But, again, I'd like to thank Eric, giving up his time. He's a very busy guy, travels all over the world with SketchUp. So, it's a real honor to have him here. So, certainly like to thank him on that, and thank you all for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks, Eric.